Howdy, Chiefs Kingdom. It's Wednesday. It's 7 o'clock. You know what that means? It's time for Chiefs Kingdom Live.
Whoop, whoop.
If you haven't clicked that like and subscribe, go ahead and do that now. We'd appreciate it. It helps the show out a bunch, and we'd really appreciate it. If you're watching too, send us a question, send us a comment, join the discussion. We got a lot to talk about this week, so I'm expecting a lively and fiery show. So I'm expecting an equally fiery and active chat. Got our man Shippy in here. He's ready to go. Doesn't look like he's too beat down by the loss on Sunday, which we'll get into here in a minute. You're stuck with just Nick and I. Bo's feeling a little under the weather this week. So we're doing kind of a, it's like New Heights, the Two Brothers show, only it's not the Kelsey brothers, it's us. Thought about maybe calling the show New Lows. Not quite sure, but Nick, how you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. I've had time to lick the wounds after that loss. That was a tough one, but when you look around, you're like, okay, so we're 9-3. We have an opportunity to clinch the division this weekend. It sucks to lose, especially that team again in that fashion. Having our guy Travis Kelce fumble the ball when we have a chance to not put the game away, but put a comfortable lead up, right? And you look around, you're like, all right, well, like being upset too much about that is really some first world fan shit, right? So the future's bright for Kansas City. The season, all is not lost, right? We're still sitting there in the 2 seed position, which is great. We got a little help with the 49ers taking out Miami. So I'm good, man. How are you?
Yeah, I'm still a little pissed. I'm not doom and gloom. I don't think the sky's not falling. Chiefs are going to win the division. Chiefs are going to be in the playoffs. They're going to play a playoff game or games at Arrowhead Stadium. All of their goals that they started the season with are still right there in front of them to go out and get. So, but it is frustrating because, and we'll just jump right in. If you haven't followed us on our social media platforms, we're approaching 2,000 followers on Twitter. So if you're not following us there, go on, head on over there. Follow us there. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook at Chiefs Kingdom Live. We're kind of putting together a new giveaway. We're kind of brainstorming that right now. So you never know where that's going to be coming from. So go check us out there. But yeah, this Bengals game, to me, it feels like, and if I was a Bengals fan listening to a Chiefs fan say this, it would piss me off because, I'd be saying, well, beat you 3 times in a row. But I still don't leave that game feeling like the Bengals are clearly the better team than the Chiefs. They had a lot of fortunate calls their way early. They had, they were playing, they came out on fire, got an early lead. And when it came down to it, the Chiefs had the ball with the lead in the 4th quarter and fumbled it and missed a field goal. So this idea that like the Bengals are they're the Chiefs' kryptonite and we can't beat them. I think the Chiefs could certainly beat the Bengals if they played their game and they didn't screw around. But, I put this out on the Twitter account. The feeling I got, the overall feeling, and we'll get into, individual performances and key moments, the good, the bad, and the ugly from that loss against Cincinnati, 27-24. But I was going back to the Rams game in my head. And all these people were critical of fans that were upset about the Chiefs only beating the Rams by 16. That's 2 touchdowns. This is the NFL. You're not going to win every game by 30 points. But it just seems like the Chiefs did the same things in those games. And they win because it's the Rams and they're playing a 37th string quarterback, undrafted guy. They didn't have Cooper Kupp. you can get away with that against teams like the Rams, fumbles, not converting in the red zone, goofy, weird gimmick plays at the goal line in goal to go situations that end up not working. You can get away with that against the Rams, but you can't get away with that against teams like the Bengals and the Bills. So that was my overall thought. I just kept like going back in my mind to that Rams game, watching the Bengals game, thinking this is kind of the same game. It's just the level of competition is better, and you can't get away with it. And Patrick Mahomes isn't always going to be able to pull the rabbit out of the hat. I have an old saying, Nick, you've heard it 1,000 times. Eventually, the hat runs out of rabbits, right?
Right.
So, look, again, Bengals fans watching this would probably be throwing their phone through the wall or calling me the biggest homer on the planet. And I get it because it definitely sounds like that. But I still do not get the impression of watching these close games where the Chiefs make mistakes, shoot themselves in the foot, or on the wrong side of critical calls, officiating, that the Bengals are clearly the better team and they've got our number and we can't beat them. What are your thoughts?
I agree with everything you said. Maybe that's why I'm not as upset. It's not like we came up against a team that we're totally outclassed by. It's just that the Chiefs have just underperformed in those games. But let's be real, they've underperformed in the turnover column all year, right? They're negative turnovers on the year, lower in the league. It's one of my keys of the kingdom stats that we can look at.
Right.
And so, this is kind of part of the DNA of this team this year, at least, where they've had a lot of turnovers, turnovers in the red zone, fumbles when they can put games away. And I know you and I were talking about this. I feel like there's been a few games this year where the Chiefs had a lead and they had the ball and it was mid fourth quarter and they had the opportunity to go down and go up 2 scores. And it seems like they struggle on those drives specifically. And they turn the ball over, they, end up punting. Now we're relying on the part of our team that everybody kind of knows is the weaker part of the team, right? The defense. And so we've invested heavily. It's not because the Chiefs haven't tried to address it, but it's the crew that, like, if you have to pick one that to win the game for you, you're not picking the defense with this team. So,
No.
so they've got to figure that out, and they've got to look at what's going on in those situations and how do we perform better. That said, like, we still have Patrick Mahomes. We're still going to win our division. This 1 seed is still in play, and you've lost 3 games and 2 of them are against high level competition by 1 score. So ultimately, as much as that one stings and you'd like to, put another game between you and the Bengals, stay ahead for that 1 seed, the future of the season is still, very bright. If we can win out, like, that's the hardest game we had left on our schedule. So if they can just, put the hammer down for the rest of the season, take care of business. We want, Buffalo will probably lose another game. I doubt they're going to win out. We've got the 1 seed, we've got home field advantage, and then we flush all the rest of that shit down the drain that happened in the season. It's a brand new season, and everybody's playing at Arrowhead as long as the Chiefs are still in it. So that's kind of where my head's at. It does hurt to see it. We talked about this last season. It hurts to see your team underperform. If you just get your ass beat or you just lose because you're not as good, that's one thing. But when you are playing and like, your team is better, and you still don't win, I think that's where the Chiefs are at. They look at that and they go, we're better than this team when we play our best game, and we're not bringing our best game. So
yeah, the previous 2 Bengals games, the Chiefs had 18-point leads in both of those games.
Yeah,
and they blew them. You blow an 18-point lead, that says more about you than it does the other team in a lot of circumstances. And I was kind of going back and forth with a Bengals fan, and he was saying, "Oh, come on, man, it's not that hard to admit you lost to the better team." And I said, "Man, like, look at it this way: if you were in our shoes and you had the lead with the ball and you fumbled it away and you missed a field goal and you gave up a 3rd and 11 in the fourth quarter, you'd be saying the same thing. You'd be like, man, we beat ourselves. We didn't close it out. We left the door open." And so, yeah, the Bills and the Bengals, it's kind of like 2 ways to look at that, those losses, right? Yeah, they lost to two really good teams. You could also look at it as those are the two teams you probably have to worry most about. Although I still think the Dolphins are a legit threat. The Bengals, they lost to the Browns, they lost to the Steelers in a game where Joe Burrow had
Yeah.
5 turnovers or something. So they're not unbeatable. I don't even think they're in the lead in their division right now. I think the Ravens are technically in first place in that division. So the Bengals and Bills play each other. I think that's week 17. I think that's second last
Yeah.
game. So one of them is getting an L. The way things are going right now, you're probably gonna be rooting for the Bengals to win that game. That
As
rooting
weird
for
as
the
that
Bengals,
is.
that's almost getting to be as hard as rooting for the Raiders or something. But um, yeah, let's just get into the game. Um, Early on, I feel like this is a broken record, and I get tired of complaining about referees. But you look at the interception that they took away from us, very close, very questionable pass interference call. That the referee doesn't even start really throwing the flag until he sees the balls being intercepted, which makes you kind of scratch your head. Well, if you saw pass interference, why didn't you throw the flag when you saw the pass interference? Were you just waiting to see if the guy you were waiting to see if it was intercepted? And that didn't make any sense to me. That's iffy. The roughing the passer on Joe Burrow, we've talked about this all year, and you see it in other games. Got Bose in there in the chat. Hope you get to feeling good, man. Miss having you on here, but appreciate you jumping in and giving us a shout out there. But and that really is a big momentum swing to start the game. You're on the road.
Oh, yeah.
The Chiefs they get a 3rd and 15. Was that a 3rd and 15 conversion? Negated by a penalty. The offensive linemen need to know better than to be downfield in that situation. But that was also a broken play scramble drill. They're trying to block guys. They're moving around. You drift 1 extra yard downfield. So they just had penalties, some questionable, some definite penalties that are mental errors on their part. But also, I mean, referees could not call that. I mean, what advantage were the Chiefs gaining by having their linemen an extra yard downfield in 3rd and 15 or 3rd and 20? So that right out the gate kind of shoots them in the foot. Officiating, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I was pissed. First, I'm gonna say what's up to my friend Jamie in chat. See you down there. He's riding high. He's an Eagles fan. He lives out by Philly, so
Yeah.
they're just destroying people, which is great.
Yeah.
Great to see. That's I've adopted that as my NFC team since I have a lot of friends that I work with that are out there. And so anyway, yeah, the officiating. Look, there's these plays that they call that change the complexity of a game. It didn't decide the outcome of the game. The Chiefs had the lead later on, but it definitely changed the way that game went, because you go from the Chiefs getting the ball deep in Bengals territory, right? I think
Inside the 10, right?
inside the 10, right? So 3, probably 7, especially with that momentum swing, to the Bengals then being up 14-3. That's a huge swing in the game. You can't deny that. And it was on a questionable call. I will say, kudos, thank you, refs. They finally threw an offensive pass interference flag on Jamar Chase.
Right.
And I think they only did it because of the taunting, right? I think they were like looking at that and they said, "Hey, dude, we just gave you guys a touchdown for free, and now you got a taunt on top of it. No. Now we're not going to let you do these push-offs all the time." And
he did it 3 other times.
They called it 1 out of the 3 times because he had 2 other pretty blatant offensive pass interferences not called. So it's really frustrating. You see that sack on Burrow. He's diving at him as he's releasing the ball. He wraps him up. He hits him right in the middle of the torso. Doesn't land on him with his full body weight. Obviously tries to brace himself and gets off of him as soon as he hits the ground. You cannot teach a better textbook takedown than that. And if that is a penalty in the NFL, they've got major problems, because we just, there's nothing that the defenders can do. And I think that also impacted later in the game on, I think it was 3rd and 11, where they sealed the game. you see the Chiefs defender almost kind of hold up, and he gets through the line. And I think he thought maybe the ball was gone, and he didn't want to get a penalty if the ball was already gone. May have decided how the game ended because that was third down. So it's a poor product. You see everybody complaining about it every week, but I don't expect any of it to change. I think that's just what the NFL wants. They're like, Joe Burrow is one of the guys. We already lost most of the season when he blew out his knee. We're going to protect him at all costs, and that's what it is. So that all said, the Chiefs still, were up later in the game, chance to go up by 2 scores, didn't convert. So it didn't end up ultimately deciding the outcome of the game, but really frustrating.
Dug them a huge hole they had to climb out of, though. I mean, you see plays where guys land on Mahomes, or there's a couple plays later where the guy shoves Patrick Mahomes to the ground clearly after the ball is gone. That's not even stopping your momentum or having to deal with. That's, don't reach out and shove the guy. You know what I'm saying? Like that, clear as day, the ball's gone. He shoves him to the ground. I mean, he can fall backwards and hit his head wrong. Lots of things could happen. You can fall back and try to brace yourself with your arms and twist that wrist or do something to the elbow. They don't call it. It's insanely frustrating to watch them pick and choose when they're going to enforce these sissy rules. That's what I'm going to call them. I mean, somebody one of our followers on Twitter had a really good quote. They said, "What planet are these or what planet do the referees call this not a catch, or what?" And she said, "Planet Ref," and I just died laughing. Planet Ref. That's got to be quite the interesting place to exist. But I know a lot of people say this, but man, I was like this close to turning the game off. I'm like, if this is the way the game's gonna go, they're just gonna take interceptions away and give them first downs on roughing the passers and not call push off. That catch that Jamar Chase made on the sideline there in the first quarter, I want to say it was our first drive. He pushed off. He shoved the defender out of the way. Both arms fully extended. They don't call it. It's so aggravating to watch it. And it's not just Chiefs games. I watch other NFL games, and I'm like, are y'all just like got money on this one team? The Saints game comes to mind. Old Tom Brady, that penalty. I mean, come on, like ridiculous. But that's getting off topic. So definitely didn't help the Chiefs. Chiefs didn't help themselves either, though. They were moving the ball. Another issue that we talked about last week in the Rams game, whether we thought it was a one-off or whether it was maybe something to be concerned with, was the red zone offense.
Mm-hmm.
The Chiefs moved the ball on the Bengals. They were gashing them in the run game. They were throwing the ball downfield. The Bengals defense really was not giving much resistance to the Chiefs offense. They had to settle for field goal. They called another one of these gimmicky trick plays, which I understand when they work, everybody loves it. Oh, what a genius, what a smart play design. When it doesn't, what are you doing? You're an idiot. But they did it against the Rams last week, and it seemed like the consensus of fans on social media and on the radio anyway was, well, they just do that against lower competition to try things out and put things on tape for later in the season. I mean, you think the Bengals, they consider them lower competition, that they can come out and run these gimmicky plays? I've never really thought that was the case when they get cute down by the goal line. I think they do it in large part because they can't run the ball down at the goal line, which it was questionable series there. It was 2nd and 3 and 3rd and 3. The Chiefs could have got a first down, I want to say, at the 3 or the 4 yard line. And they passed it when Isaiah Pacheco, he's on a hot streak these last couple, 2-3 weeks, running the ball. I'm all for giving the ball to letting Patrick make plays, but maybe that's an instance where you're running the ball well, you're down by the goal line. Isaiah Pacheco had a nice rushing touchdown there inside the 10 at the goal line later in the game. What are you seeing from the red zone offense that's maybe concerning you the most last couple of games? The Chiefs were one of the leaders in the league going into that Rams game at 75%. Now I want to say they're below 50% these last 2 games. Is this a major red flag? Is this something that, they were maybe going to come back to regress to the mean a little bit at some point, getting over 75%? Things you're seeing in the goal to go situations inside the red zone that you don't like, you'd like to see better. What do you think?
Well, their red zone touchdown percentage actually went up slightly that last game. They're sitting at 2/3 of their trips to the red zone. They score a touchdown. It's pretty awesome. I agree
They
with you
needed
though.
a
I
fourth
don't
and
think they.
goal Aaron Mahomes play to get one of them, though, right?
Yep. I don't think they trust their run game enough in the red zone. When you're right down there at the goal line, though, everybody's compressed, and if you can't put some sort of fear into the defense that you're going to at least try to run the ball, then they're going to have a lot easier time covering your guys. And we saw McKinnon and Pacheco both, I think, have decent runs down there by the goal line. Pacheco scored a touchdown, didn't he? I mean,
Yeah.
McKinnon, he got a 6 or 7 or 8 yard run down there inside the 10. I think it was 1st and 10, and he got 7 yards right there at the 5-yard line, something like that. So I think that they're not trusting these backs yet. I think it's still kind of a after effect of, call it the Clyde Edwards-Helaire effect, where they just are used to getting stoned when they try to run down there at the goal line. And so they got a little bit of PTSD about that. But I think that if you see them start to trust that, because Pacheco averaged almost 5 yards a carry during that game. He had a good game. He had a solid game.
And
And
earlier in the game, he was up around 6 something. That average kind of fell off there as the game went on later. But yeah, he was running the ball well. McKinnon too. They were both running the ball
yeah.
well.
So I think that just having no threat that you're going to legitimately just try to line up and run the ball and have any success makes it easier. And also the offensive line isn't doing us any favors. Mahomes is having to run around, and the defenders are getting to him. I know it wasn't a go to go type situation, but that third down where right before we kicked the field goal that we missed, which essentially lost us the game, they're rushing 3 guys and Mahomes gets sacked. So that should just never, ever, 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 ever happen. You've got
Yeah, that was
5
something I
guys
was
lining up against 3.
that was something I was going to get to a little bit later when we get towards the end of the
Yeah.
game. But yeah, for sure.
So I think that it's a mix of not running the ball and protection, right? And running the ball will help with your pass protection, because those guys can't just tee off expecting to get to the passer. But they've shown all year that they're going to try to use Mahomes. He does have 30 touchdown passes. A lot of those are shorter touchdown passes. So, until they change some things up and how they're presenting and what they're showing to the defenses, I think that they're going to see those people start to do it. And once people can look on film and say, well, here's how you stop the Chiefs at the goal line, it's a copycat league. So
yeah.
we got
Couple
Bo.
of
The
things.
O-line is my concern for our
Yeah.
red zone offense. Brown and Wiley giving up more pressure than any other lineman in the league. Makes it hard for run game and pat. Yeah, agree, Bo.
For sure. I think a couple things that are hurting him. First of all, the Wildcat direct snap to Jerick McKinnon. I mean, I was just sitting here praising Jerick McKinnon. This is nothing against him, but you're running Patrick Mahomes out wide, so you're taking the league MVP out of the equation at the goal line. That's not smart football. That's not smart play calling to me. Was not a fan of that play. Was not a fan of I don't think you'd call it a flea flicker. I don't know what you would call that weird, goofy play they ran against the Rams there at the goal line last week, was where they kind of handed it off to the receiver, and he runs over to the side and throws it back across the field to Patrick, and then he tries to throw. I just, those are low percentage plays to me.
Yeah.
So I didn't like that. I think another issue. I think this team is missing McCole Hardman in the red zone. The dude had, 3 touchdowns against the 49ers. He runs the jet sweep. I know they've tried it with Sky Moore. Sky Moore maybe just needs a little bit more time with it. I don't think he's quite as fast as McCole Hardman either. But they're missing some weapons. MVS had a drop in the end zone that luckily, Jerick McKinnon bailed him out on by catching a touchdown pass on 3rd and goal. But those are the things I'm kind of seeing that are hurting the red zone and especially the goal line offense right now. But against the Bengals, when you're gouging them and you're running it down their throat on 2nd and 3 at the goal line, and Bo and you will probably sit there and
I know it's coming, and I want to hear you say it.
Because I'm the guy that's like, I wish they would throw the ball every play. But maybe 2nd and 3 when your running back's getting 6 yards a pop, maybe try to run the ball again on 2nd and 3 down at the goal line and get you a fresh set of downs inside the 5 there. Especially when the pass game's been struggling. You don't have McCole Hardman, who really pressures the defense to guard sideline to sideline, that dude with his speed and the threat of those little jet sweep, toss pitch, sideways, whatever you want to call those things. Patrick, he gets a little impatient, but that's also what makes him Patrick Mahomes. So, but I don't. The Chiefs have been good with Patrick Mahomes' red zone offense, goal-to-go situations. I think this is just an odd couple of weeks where maybe they outsmarted themselves a little bit. I give a lot of it to – I chalked a lot of last week's performance in the red zone and goal-to-go situations up against – the Rams still have a damn good defense. They got Aaron Donald. They got Bobby Wagner. They've got the cornerback Ramsey. They've got good players on that Rams defense. The defense is not beat up like the offense is in L.A. So I'm not overly concerned moving forward with the red zone offense. If we get down there and we play the Broncos coming up, which we'll talk here towards the end of the show, if they go 1 for 4 touchdown again, okay, now maybe we do have a problem. Maybe teams have figured something out. But I think that you're going to see that thing get back up more to that 75-80% range like we were seeing for most of the season up to this point the last couple of weeks, especially like I said, when you get McCole Hardman back, you get a weapon back there. Kadarius Toney, I think, is a guy that maybe you could also use to draw some attention and keep teams guessing down there. And I would like to see Pacheco, like you mentioned, Nick, and I said earlier, he had a nice run. That was a good run. That rushing touchdown he got, I want to say he ran in from the 6 or the 7-yard line. He made cuts. He got in there, lowered the shoulder. He's looked really good. When we get to some positives here, I don't want to beat the Chiefs up and sit here and be all gloom and doom on Chiefs Kingdom Live. But there's just a few negatives from the game that the Chiefs got to get cleaned up if they want to beat teams like the Bills and the Bengals in the playoffs. Turnovers, the Travis Kelce turnover. Are you worried? Is anybody in the chat worried about Travis Kelce fumbling the ball come playoff time? I don't. I'm not worried about that. They've had other issues. The defense is not really – the offense is giving it up more than they have traditionally under Andy Reid, but the defense also isn't getting a lot of takeaways.
Right.
They got some interceptions against the Rams, but I can't even remember that quarterback's name. That's how bad of a quarterback that guy is. In Los Angeles, they seem to have fixed the Sky Moore. He was one of the main culprits on a lot of these turnovers. You go to the Colts game, he had another one, muff punt against the Rams. Didn't hurt him because of you're playing the Rams, but so I'd like to think that's going to get buttoned up. Do you think we see the turnovers? Is that also kind of a fluky stretch, like a golfer they call gets the yips maybe or something? What do you think about the turn? Chiefs keep turning the ball over on offense, do you think? And also, do you think the defense starts getting a few more turnovers here going down the stretch?
Look, I know one thing is we've got the best coaching staff in the league, if not the absolute best, tied for the best. So they're going to focus on getting those things cleaned up. I'm not that concerned about it. However, it has cost us. There's no way around that. And we have to look at that. And I think that you bring up a really good point that the defense is not getting those turnovers. No. Bo, I think in the chat says Nick Bolton has the most on the team with 2 interceptions. We're not getting these multi-interception games. Sometimes we've gone without getting a turnover at all on defense. So it's going to be tough sledding when you
Yeah.
when you don't get turnovers, especially when you have guys that are pretty reliable that are coughing up the ball. So I'm not concerned that this is going to be a trend that you're going to see go up, but it sure hurt in that game to have that guy do that at that point in time, right? So
Yeah. And Travis, I mean, he'd be the first to admit he needs to be better there.
yeah,
So
he did it on his podcast. He took
right.
ownership.
Yep. And then that's what a great player does and a leader does. So again, I'm not worried about Travis Kelce hurting the team down the stretch. The guy's won how many games for us? A big part of the reason the Chiefs are in the position they're in.
You know how great of a dude that guy is. He's sitting there to the whole world. I think John C said it earlier. They're the number one sports podcast, number 3 out of all podcasts right now. Telling the whole world, like, basically, I lost the game. And what he's saying is, I need to be accountable in this situation. So he's taking accountability while also saying I wasn't accountable. That's the way that guy's mindset works. He's not looking at that as like, no. The opportunity to be accountable is over. I've already fucked up and I've already lost that game. So
Yeah.
you're not going to see that happen from that guy again. But we definitely have to focus on it not happening from Sky Moore or McKinnon or any of these other guys. But you do bring up a really good point in that, although it's not like losing like Jamar Chase and T Higgins, we didn't have Kadarius Toney or Mecole Hardman for that game. So that's 2 starting talent wide receivers that were out. We lost by 3 points. So you got to think that those guys combined probably cover at least 3 points. So that's another positive to look forward to.
Sure. Last thing too, I want kind of this would be like the last of, we were going to talk about like the good, the bad, and the ugly. This will be the last of the bad and the ugly here. We talked about it on last week's show, and it was a area that I thought was going to win the game for the Chiefs. Was going to be the difference between the AFC Championship game last year,
yeah,
and this year. Was I thought the defense was going to get to Joe Burrow. This defense was 7th in the league in sacks. A lot of that might be smoke and mirrors, fool's gold, because they're doing it by blitzing, and like L'Jarius needs a cornerback and he's got 3 or 4 sacks on the season. Chris Jones is really the only guy on the defensive line that continually harasses and pressures the quarterback and gets sacks. We saw George Karlaftis get a sack, but that was kind of a dumb mistake by Burrow. I think he probably could have kept running, but he kind of like slid down, right? I don't know if George runs him down or not and on that play there right at the end of the game. But this team was like one of the most gave up the most sacks. Joe Burrow, if there's one flaw, one part of his game that people point out is his worst part is taking too much sacks, holding on to the ball too long. That offensive line, they tried to retool it, rebuild it in the offseason. Really were not getting the results they had hoped for. I want to say through 11 games, they had given up like 33 or 35 sacks, giving up almost 3 a game. The Chiefs were bottom 3rd in the league in sacks last year. This year, top 10 in sacks. Joe Burrow had all day in the pocket. Like, why can't this team pressure Joe Burrow? Last year in the AFC Championship game, I want to say the week before they played the Titans had 7 or 8 sacks, set like an AFC playoff record, or tied an AFC playoff game record for sacks in a game. Joe Burrow was the most sacked quarterback in the league. Couldn't get him. Chris Jones did have him and let him out of a critical 3rd down in that game late. But they weren't pressuring him last year. They weren't pressuring him this year. What is it about an area that I thought had become somewhat of a strength for the Chiefs going up against the weakness of the Bengals? It didn't materialize at all. What do you think that is? Why is that?
I'm not sure if it's a talent problem or a coaching problem, but you see good coaches continually have, outstanding performances no matter what guys they plug in. You're seeing it with offense, right? Is it just that we got that lucky over and over again, or is there something to say, well, we keep switching out the guys and we keep kind of having similar results? So what's the common denominator there, right? Is it defensive line coach? Is it linebackers coach? Is it defensive coordinator? I think that we've talked about this on the show before. I think that there's just this fundamental gap between head coach and defense with the Kansas City Chiefs. And Andy Reid is more involved with the offense, and he's not a defensive minded guy. And so I think that you're always going to have deficiencies there. That said, just inexcusable to not get one sack against that crew. They've given up 33 sacks this year. It's really pitiful, right? Pitiful. So credit to the Bengals for doubling Chris Jones, and Burrow pulled down and ran a few times. The guy showed some grit. He delivered a couple of balls right before he got hit, so they did their work too, but everybody else can figure it out and we can't. And I got to say at this point, we spend first round pick on a pass rusher, a guy that's supposed to be on the edge. All you hear is the guy's motor. He never quits, and he's got 1.5 sacks this year. So was it a bad
I think he's
pick?
up 2.5. Didn't they give him a sack at the end of that game? Joe Burrow, when he just kind of slid down there at the end, everybody was talking about what a terrible mistake that was because it was right at the 2-minute warning.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I don't
think
care.
he got a sack on that play, but it wasn't like he busted through the line and wrapped Burrow up and took him down.
Right.
He was in pursuit of him, and Burrow kind of slid and he touched him down. So, yeah, essentially 0 sacks.
Yeah, so it's just our defense is not reliable, and I just have this fear that we're going to look back on Patrick Mahomes' career and say that could have been a guy that won 4 or 5 Super Bowls, but they just always kind of just trusted that Mahomes was going to dig it out, and they never really got a good defense. Because you look at the Broncos, we're about to play. We'll talk about that game. They're 32nd in the league in points scored, and they are in every game every week.
Yeah.
Right. The only reason that they lost to the Ravens this week is because the defense gave up 10 points. Yeah. You only give up 10 points and you lose. So something stinks about how the defense is ran in Kansas City and has since the Alex Smith days. I think it cost Alex Smith the opportunity to at least go to a Super Bowl, if not win one. We had offense, and it just, the defense just could not get off the field. So I think that they recognize it, but I don't think that they're taking proper steps to get it fixed. I think that Spags was here, won a championship. And so as long as we're not, obviously blowing games and we giving up 30 points a game, I just think it's something we're going to have to deal with, being a mid to low tier defense.
Right. And you talk about Patrick Mahomes looking back on his career. Even if he does win 4 or 5 Super Bowls, you're going to look at it and say, well, shit, the guy could have had 6 or 7 if they would have had a decent defense his first 5 years. Yeah, the defense, we've praised. They've got some good pieces. Nick Bolton makes good plays. Chris Jones is playing like an all-pro defensive player of the year level. They've got some guys, but you're right. Like, they let Charvarius Ward walk this year because of money, and they go all youth with rookies. And Juan Thornhill's not a rookie, but he's an unproven guy. He had a hot stretch of his first year before he got that injury and missed the remainder. He missed the Super Bowl run there. And he has not been that. He misses a lot of tackles. He missed a tackle on Jamar Chase there at the end of the game that gave him a first down that helped him bleed the clock out. Yeah, I'm with you. The defense is still a liability. You were talking about, and I was talking about the Chiefs, not putting teams away when they have the opportunity. A lot of the times, I think that's on the defense. Like, the offense will get a score or they'll get 2 scores, but the defense folded and gave up a touchdown in between those two scores. So instead of having a 2-score lead, it's a 1-score lead. I'm a little more sore with them than I am with the offense when it comes to putting games away. When it comes to the overall level of play, they've got to step it up, and guys got to make plays. And I don't know if Spags is a problem or not. I've never coached football. I'm not one of these film guys that can look at a film session and say, okay, well, they're playing this defense and this formation and this scheme. I mean, I can't do all that. But all I know is they haven't been able to give Patrick Mahomes a top 10 defense since he's been here. And they've spent money and draft picks at the position. They brought in Tyrann Mathieu. They drafted 2 defensive players in the first round last year, which Trent McDuffie looked pretty good. And Jamar Chase, actually, this last game. He's looking good. He missed some games with injury. But they've gone out. The Frank Clark trade, gave up 2 firsts, paid him a lot of money. Got a Super Bowl. He was an integral part. I don't think the Chiefs probably win that Super Bowl that year without him. So it's hard to say that trade or that move is a failure, but it's sure hurting us right now. What could the Chiefs have done with those 2 first-round picks? Gotten a better defensive player in here. So, yeah, they definitely need to get that buttoned up. But we're 40 minutes in, and we're still kind of bashing the Chiefs, and rightfully so. Look, you lost 3 games in a row to an AFC foe that is a contender. It's not good. It's not good. But all that said, dropped passes, fumbles. We didn't even get to Harrison Butker. I feel like that's a broken record as too with him this year. Either he's healthy or he's peaked and he's now coming back down to earth. I don't know how trustworthy that guy is. Maybe you're going to have to wait until an offseason where he can get healed and see how he is next year. But fumbles, dropped touchdowns, poor offensive line play, no pressure on the quarterback, unfortunate calls, penalties at key times that swing momentum. And the Chiefs had the ball in the fourth quarter, up 4 with a chance, and we're driving to go up 11. And I think they beat the Bengals if they go up 11 there.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
This team still does a lot of things well. One of the things was Patrick Mahomes. He had another great game. Aaron Mahomes at the goal line. You're going to be seeing that picture for a long time. Amazing play by him.
How great was that?
It was great.
And he made it across by like 2 or 3 inches before he fumbled the ball.
Right. I tell you what, I don't really like seeing Mahomes coming down flat, though, from 6 feet in the air onto the turf.
You could tell he wanted that one.
You could tell he wanted that one, but at the same time, maybe give it to Pacheco there from now on if you want to run it. Yeah. Man, a great play, iconic photo, but great moment. Not a fan of Patrick Mahomes taking on 2 defenders and coming down from 5 or 6 feet in the air. I mean, you got to just brace yourself wrong with your arm, you know?
Yeah.
But he looked good. You know, people say, oh, well, he had pedestrian numbers. I mean, he had 260-something yards and 2 touchdowns.
He had pedestrian Patrick Mahomes numbers.
Right. He was great. The offense moved the ball, the run game. Let's talk about that for a second. We've been clamoring for Pacheco all season on this show.
Yep.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire is on IR. I know I have been championing a tandem, a 1-2 punch of Pacheco and McKinnon all season. Pacheco looks like he's the real deal. He's tough. He's got speed. He seems like he turns nothing into something when guys in the backfield. I mean, he broke a tackle from Aaron Donald and turned a negative play into a positive gain last week. Pacheco had a great game, man. He didn't necessarily get 100 yards because he didn't get the carries. They were sprinkling McKinnon in there, especially in the passing game, coming out of the backfield.
But McKinnon on here too.
Yeah, I like McKinnon, man. That combo. I'm sorry, when Clyde comes back, if he comes back, he's got to go to the bench.
Yeah,
I've seen enough. What did you see from Pacheco and McKinnon in the running game, which was a real positive? Chiefs rushed for I want to say, 150 yards roughly over in there. Um, guys look good running the ball.
Following their blocks,
Yeah.
letting it develop, and following the blocks and finding the open holes. It just seems like they've got better vision than CEH does. And Pacheco, he's noticeably faster. McKinnon, he's not a super fast guy, but he follows his blocks and he knows where to go on the field. It just seems like he has a better sense of knowing, like they call that vision, just knowing where to go. Pacheco, he's faster. He picks the right holes. And man, that dude just runs like he's trying to hurt somebody every time he gets the ball. You can tell that guy is looking at every time his number's called as an I'm going to put him back on screen here. Every time his number's called is an opportunity he gets to prove that he's the guy that should be, the number one back. The guy that was drafted in the lower rounds had the fastest time at the combine for a 40, I believe, and probably didn't think he was going to go that far down in the draft. Gets an opportunity to come to the Chiefs, play with Patrick Mahomes, and he's just, every time he gets the ball, it just looks like he's a guy that's like, I'm not going to leave like 1 inch on the field that I could have got. And you don't get that sense from him. Even when he gets stopped stone short, you're just, yeah, well, he just didn't really have a good hole. Guys broke through, bad blocking. But that's really what stands out to me, is it just seems like he wants it more. So.
And I hate to admit it, but man, the Bengals got some fucking sweet uniforms and helmet. Like I hate that fucking team, but
I always loved it when I was a kid. I always loved their uniforms.
Yeah, that's a good looking uni they got right there.
Don't put those white and black ones. I don't like those very much.
Yeah, the white ones don't look as good, but yeah, those home orange and black, those helmets look dope.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and the passing attack, Patrick and crew, Travis Kelce had a quiet first half, but he got going in the second half. Juju's back. It was good to see Juju come back.
Yeah,
made some plays. The passing game, Justin Watson made some nice catches. MVS, man, like I've got the old
put him on here just for
Lorenzo
you.
Kane syndrome going on with that dude.
Yeah,
he still drops too many passes to my liking. He dropped a touchdown. He dropped another pass earlier in the game. He came through though, clutch, made some good catches later in the game. Made a big catch that extended a drive that I believe ended up in a touchdown. The guy's got to be more consistent. But Patrick Mahomes had thrown for over 300 yards in 6 straight games. That's hard to do. I don't think there's any other quarterback in the league that had 6 300-yard passing games total this season.
total, yeah.
So, what's wrong with Patrick? He only threw for 280 and 1 touchdown this week. He had the rushing touchdown, so he technically had 2 touchdowns. But he's still playing at an MVP level. He looked great. I think he would have had 300 if the Chiefs weren't rushing the ball as well as they were and moving the chains and getting the ball down. I mean, he could have thrown for over 300 in that game too. It's good to see Juju get healthy. If we can get Tony and if we can get Hardman back, that's going to be great. The addition of a running game, the Chiefs' offense looking even better.
Everyone on the active squad practice today, according to Bo. So that's good news.
Nice. That's good to see. That's real good to see. Yeah, so let's get to the poll here. I'm tired of talking about the Bengals game. I hope we didn't, rehash, go back through the trauma of Sunday's game. There's just a lot of good too, because like I said, the offense was churning. The defense, they had a couple plays where if they can make a play on third down, they get off the field. I feel like the Chiefs if they play their game, they're going to beat the Bengals if they play them in the playoffs. I do. I don't look at that team as someone who, I don't want to play the Bengals again. I'm not scared of the Bengals, and maybe I'm just a huge homer, and I've got red and yellow tinted glasses on. But all the mistakes they made, and they were still in position to win the game at the end. And they made even more mistakes, and it cost them. They couldn't overcome them. Patrick didn't get a chance to be the magician and save them.
Comment of the day right there from John C.
John C. Well, John, we're gonna get your prize headed your way here pretty soon, so that should cheer you up. That's I don't know if that's as good as a beer or not, but that's a close second, if not. Um, this week's poll will help us wrap up the Bengals here. Do we think this week's poll is? Do you think the Chiefs face the Bengals again this year in the playoffs? Obviously, if they do, if so, and when. We got a couple options there: no, yes in the wild card, yes in the divisional, or yes in the championship. Pretty close race between divisional round and championship. I didn't think the wild card round was going to get many votes, but the Bengals are technically a wild card team right now. I do believe. I'm fairly certain the Ravens still have the lead in that division.
Lamar Jackson's hurt though, yeah.
Yeah, man, he's hurt now, but Tyler Huntley looks almost as good as Lamar Jackson. So, um, and if you're looking for a fantasy quarterback for your playoff stretch coming up down the road, go get him. Go get the backup. Go get Huntley off of the Ravens if he's still available. If someone hasn't already scooped that guy up, but you can thank me later. No got 23% of the vote too, though. It's going to be hard, I think, for the Chiefs to face the Bengals again. Look, you're going to have the Chiefs, the Bengals, and the Bills in the mix in the playoffs. You just don't want to. You just don't want to be the team of those three that has to play the other two, right? You want one of the other
Right.
ones to knock the other one out, so you only have to play one of them. I'm omitting the Dolphins from this discussion because we didn't play the Dolphins last week, but they're still a scary team. Divisional round edges it out. Nick, do you think we play the Dolphins? Do you think we play the Bengals again? And if so, when do you think we see that crew?
I was trying to do this math in my head of how it would play out. I think I said divisional round, but I also kind of agree with Bo. I could see them getting eliminated in the first round. I don't think that they're just a team that lights everybody up, sets the world on fire type deal. The fact that Joe Burrow gets sacked a lot, it's gonna start wearing on the guy. I know he's still young, but it's got to be wearing on that dude at a certain point throughout the season, getting sacked 30, 40, 50 times a year. So I would either say divisional round or no. I think if we, I'm thinking it's going to be Chiefs, Bills, AFC Championship, number one versus the number two seed, however that falls out. That's what I think. I just don't think that there's anybody that's going to beat those two quarterbacks in the postseason. But it could go the other way. It could be different. What did you think?
I'm going to go no because I think that is the most likely scenario. It's hard to play a team in the playoffs every year. We've done it against the Bills, but it's just they've got to win and you've got to win. You've got the seeds got to fall right. I don't expect the Chiefs play the Bengals again. I don't know if they get taken out in the first round. Really looking forward to seeing that Bills-Bengals game here in a few weeks. I
Yeah.
want to see those teams match up against one another. But got Daniel in the house, our resident Rams expert.
I'm glad you guys trolled San Francisco by signing Baker Mayfield. That was great.
Right. I don't know if that's trolling. I think they did the 49ers a favor. He's baked Mayfield's point, not Baker Mayfield. Got John in here. He's thinking championship game. Could be. That'd be a hell of a rematch. You think if we play the Bengals again, Nick, you think we face them at home or on the road?
I think it's going to be at home, right?
Chiefs are one game up on them right now, right? 3 losses, and they've got 4. So as long as the Chiefs win out, they would be the higher seed. The Bengals, too, they got a tough schedule coming up. They've got to play the Ravens again, I believe. They're playing the Browns this week, which was I saw a really interesting fact that somebody pointed out. It says Joe Burrow is 3-0 against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, and he's 0-4 against Kevin Stefanski as the head coach of the Browns. How that happens, that's just sports. So
right.
Yeah, that's this week's poll. Thanks to everybody who voted on it. Chiefs Kingdom's thinking divisional round.
Yep.
I'll take that, John C. Right now. I mean, I'd like to play the Bengals again. I want retribution. I want to beat this team's ass. So we'll see how that plays out going down the stretch here. 5 weeks to go. This home stretch starts this Sunday at the Denver Broncos. Game's been flexed out of prime time. It's a noon kickoff, which, hey, I'm good with that. As someone who has to get up pre-6 a.m. in the morning on Monday, I'll take all the noon and 3 o'clock games I can get. The Broncos, Nick, you mentioned their offense is putrid and horrible. Russell Wilson, maybe he seems like there's reports or people are talking, or it looks like he's lost some of that locker room maybe already.
I mean,
Their
maybe.
offense is horrible. Defense is terrible, though. Or defense. The offense is terrible. The defense is really good, though. So, how you feeling? First game, they play them twice in 4 weeks coming up here, twice in 3 weeks. First one of those two is at Denver, at Mile High. Patrick Mahomes looking to continue the undefeated streak on the road in the division against AFC West teams. How are you feeling about this game?
So the only concern I really have is there's a saying, don't let a team beat you twice, meaning don't get so focused on the fact that you lost and get so down about the loss that you don't focus on your next opponent. I think our coaching staff is good enough that they'll get that out of those guys' heads and get them back in the game, focused on what the prize is. The Chiefs have the opportunity. I think you said if with the Chargers loss and a win here to put away the AFC West, which is pretty phenomenal given that that would be the 13th game. So have 4 games to go and already have the division title, which would be pretty sweet. But, we beat them, I think, 12 times in a row now. Or was it 13?
13.
13 times in a row now.
It's an uneven number because we beat them the last game of
yeah. So there's this, I don't know if it's just being when I was a kid and we never won in Denver, or just watching our defense. I just have these like fears in the back of my mind that Russell Wilson will look like Russell Wilson again against our defense. But yeah, I'm feeling pretty confident in this game. How could you not feel confident? If anything, it's going to come down, and I've got some keys of the kingdom. I think it's going to come down to a couple of key statistics, and it's, the biggest one is probably turnovers. And if we can hold on to the ball, I don't think that they're good enough to hang with our offense. So it's the number 1 offense versus the last place offense. So I would be willing to bet that most of the time the offense that can score more points on average is going to win the game. So how do you feel?
Everybody talks about how good the Broncos defense is, but the 49ers were the greatest defense in the history of football, and Chiefs waxed them for 50 points basically. If you don't take away the touchdown on the penalty, they get 50. The Buccaneers have one of the best defenses in the NFL. Chiefs lit them up like a pinball machine. Anytime you see the Chiefs going up against the number 1, it's like Mahomes takes it personal, or he finds some extra gear, gets in the zone. Maybe it's focus, but he performs even better against top defenses or these really, really, really good defenses. I know our defense has had some struggles, but you look at their offense. You got an old Russell Wilson who really doesn't have a lot of targets to throw the ball to. Their lead running back is Latavius Murray at this point. I don't see the Broncos mustering enough. I mean, I don't see the Broncos scoring more than 17 points in this game. I'd like to hold them to less than that, but Chiefs are going to get 20 plus in this game. I don't think that Denver Broncos defense is good enough. I don't think there's any defense good enough to really hold the Chiefs down. You mentioned turnovers. I would wager a large sum of money you do not see a turnover this game. I have a feeling that is a focus in practice this week and in the meeting rooms and in the film studies with all the fumbles and now Travis having one, that's going to get that team's attention. So I think you see the Chiefs play a clean game. You talk about not letting a team beat you twice. I almost feel sorry for the Broncos that they have to play the Chiefs after losing that game to the Bengals. They're going to be pissed.
Yeah.
They're going to be on fire. They got something to prove. The motivation maybe has been, a new fire is lit now that they're back in the second seed in the AFC. They've got some wood to chop. That could be a motivating factor. Who do you think? I mean, it's a 9.5-point favorite, I think you said, is the line. We'll get to maybe some score predictions here in a few minutes, but you think Chiefs, that line seems about right to me.
Yeah, how could it not? Based on the statistics, it's really just how well can their defense, who's very familiar with playing Patrick Mahomes, do. Now, this is a retooled offense. Looks like we're going to be getting our starters back, according to our undercover reporter Bo there, the average Bo. So if we've got all of our starters back, I don't see how we don't win this game by 2 scores, unless we give it away.
I don't think McColl can come back this week though,
because he's still on IR.
IR's 4 games.
So he wouldn't be part of the active roster then if he's on IR. I get you. So he'll be out, but we'll get Tony back. Is what that means.
Yeah, let's hope Tony doesn't have another setback. Let's get him back.
Right.
This game, you got your keys to the kingdom.
I do. So, Chiefs country or Chiefs kingdom. Let's ride right over the Broncos. I just knocked myself down on my chair with my leg when I turned, just like all the professionals do. So offensive points per game, I already went over a couple of these stats. Right, the Chiefs 29 points per game are first in the NFL.
Look at 13.
Or 13.8 points, which is 32nd. Defensive points per game 22.5, which is mid-range, 15th in the league. The Broncos are at 17.0 per game, which is second. So they're, I think, behind only the 49ers. So that's been their strength. Look at total touchdowns. The Chiefs have scored 42 touchdowns. The Broncos have scored 14. Travis Kelce has 12. Right? So their whole team has 14 and Travis Kelce has 12. That's insane just to think about that. We talked about red zone touchdown percentage, and this is where the Broncos, I think, have struggled mightily. The Chiefs are still converting 2/3 of their attempts at 66%, and the Broncos are at 37%. So it's going to, it looks like the Broncos can get down there, but they're not punching the ball in. So one of the big keys to look for is, can the Chiefs defense stop them when they get in the red zone, right? And then the turnover differential here, you see the Chiefs -4, which is 26th in the league. That was alarming when I saw that. I knew that we weren't having a great season as far as turnovers, but I didn't think that we were 26th in the league. And the Broncos are +1, which is, they're middle of the pack, right? So
Chiefs are -4 in the turnover differential, and they are 9-3 in the 2 seasons.
Looks like I screwed up my deal here, so you guys can see the joke stat. So the days since the last victory against the other team, the Chiefs, it's been 333 days, which is last time they played. The Broncos have not beat the Chiefs in 2,273 days. So I know that last season when we were doing this, we had a couple of those news clips of, Obama was in office and the iPhone 6S came out and
the United States landed on the moon. And
yeah, Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. But, I mean, that's just incredible to think about. 2,000 days, 2,200 days since they beat us, and it's just been utter domination.
That was the Sunday Night Football Jamal Charles fumble, right?
It was. Peyton Manning, right? It was against Peyton Manning in Peyton Manning's last season. So it's been so long that guy's retired and already been inducted into the Hall of Fame, which you need 5 years after you retire. So.
Just as an aside to that, the Manning cast was on during that Saints Buccaneers game, and Peyton Manning's watching. He has to be sitting there watching Tom Brady, thinking, "How is this guy still playing? Like what? That was the rival."
Yeah.
And Peyton Manning's been retired for how long now? And Tom Brady's still out there. That's insane. Crazy. But again, I digress. Yeah, the Chiefs, they need to go win this game. Last year, it was a close game, though, right? It took a Nick Bolton fumble recovery for a touchdown.
Yep.
Got our man John. What's up, John? Good to see you, buddy.
Hey,
Thanks for joining us, man. Took a Nick Bolton fumble return for a touchdown to win last year. They had Drew Lock at quarterback. Maybe they should have stuck with Drew Lock, it seems like.
He wasn't doing any worse.
Wasn't doing any worse, no doubt there. But I don't know. Yeah, it was a tough loss, John. It's, we were talking about, I don't know how long I know you're just jumping in here, but it just seems like every time we play the Bengals, we beat ourselves by blowing 18-point leads or fumbling and missing field goals when we have the lead in the fourth quarter, getting bad calls, on the wrong side of the officiating. That was a frustrating loss. I was not in a good mood after that game. I was trying to maintain my composure, but I was pissed. More pissed than normal after a game. So, but thanks again, John, for jumping in. His Niners are in the mix there. They lost Jimmy G, unfortunately, but they're in the hunt there. They're in the conversation as one of the better teams in the NFC, up there with those Eagles and those Cowboys. I've seen a lot of people saying those are the four right there. But, I'll be stunned if the Chiefs don't win this game against the Broncos. Again, they got Latavius Murray at running back. They got swept by the Raiders. I mean, you know it's bad when you get swept by the Las Vegas Raiders. I just really don't see much of a scenario where, the Chiefs have to play about as bad as they did against the Indianapolis Colts to lose that game, right?
Right.
And the defense needs to get healthy. The defense needs to step on the Broncos' offense early and often, and they need to hold them to a 10 or a 12-point outing is what the defense needs to do. They've got to get headed in the right direction. If this team's going to win a Super Bowl, they have got to be able to get out there and stomp on these bad offenses and be able to get to a point where you can stop even these Bills and the Bengals, some of these better offenses. I'm not saying you're going to shut the Bengals down and hold them to 10 points or 7 points, but you got to hold them into the teens. What do you think? What do you think the Chiefs' defense does against the Broncos' offense this week on Sunday?
I think they've proven that they can hold up pretty well against lesser offensive units. So I think they're going to handle business. I don't think they're going to shut them out or anything, but I see this being right on par with what the Broncos average. What are they? They're averaging 13 points a game. So I would say the Broncos are probably going to score, I would say, between 13 and 17 points a game. To me, it's really about, is our offense going to perform against this defense? Because this Broncos defense in the past has shown that they can get to Patrick and that they can limit our offense. So it's really just to me, that's going to be the story of the game is, can the Chiefs overcome the Broncos defense, which I know you said, well, look at, sorry, John, but look at what they did to San Francisco. But San Francisco is not as familiar with the Chiefs as the Broncos are. So,
right. And the 49ers, although they seemed like they were back to full strength in that game, they had a lot of guys that were, I feel like, maybe got rushed back from injury and weren't quite ready.
That's true, yeah.
But again, you look at Patrick Mahomes in his career, his numbers and his records against number one overall defenses, and he's like 7-3 with 300 yards a game and 3 touchdowns. I don't see the Broncos defense holding the Chiefs down the Broncos, they don't really have much to play for. If there's infighting, especially too on that team, the coach situation, we haven't gotten to that with the Broncos,
Right.
is insanely terrible. Yeah, back and forth with Kelsey fumble on the way to stuff. Yeah, it's exactly. That's what we were talking about. They just got to play their game. They've got to play their game. When they get up by 18 on the Bengals, they got to put them away. When they have the ball with the lead in the fourth quarter and a chance to go down and go up double digits, 2 possessions, you got to do it. I got faith that they're going to get it figured out, and that they're just
Sure.
You can't continually shoot yourself in the foot against the same team over and over and over and over. And I just really have a hard time believing that the Chiefs defense won't figure out a way to pressure Joe Burrow should they play him again down the stretch. So Chiefs to Broncos. I want to get back to something. We kind of moved past this. I don't think you're going to see any locker room talk. I don't think you're going to see any trash talking going into the Broncos game this week. But I would be interested to know what your thoughts on the Justin Reed stuff was. And I'd be interested to know what people in the chat think. Is bulletin board material at the professional level in the NFL, is that real? Does that give guys extra motivation? There was guys, former Chiefs players I see on Twitter, Mitchell Schwartz and Jason Dunn, a couple of them. They were saying that that's a bunch of nonsense and that professional athletes, they don't need extra motivation. They go out, they get paid. They're the ultimate competitors. You got to be to get to that level. I'm sorry, like the smack talk stuff, I think that lit a fire. And I think that pisses people off. And I think bulletin board material, I think that's real. What do you think, Nick?
It's 100% real. That's just a deflection. And it pisses me off to no end when I see our guys talking smack. I hated it when we had guys saying that we were going to be a dynasty and win 7 Super Bowls. I hated it when I saw that Justin Reed was saying he was going to lock down, whoever came against him. I hated it even more when then after they lose and he gets utterly stiff-armed by a backup running back, that he then went back to Twitter and said, I did exactly what I said I was going to do. Well, yeah, okay, like maybe your targets, but there's a pretty bad video of you, just getting stiff-armed, thrown to the ground. And
missing 3 or 4 other tackles, too.
So I've always been the type of person that is like, prove who you are through your actions and what you do and what you accomplish. And being braggadocious, it's just anybody that brags is like soon to be found out an ass, right? That's just the Shakespeare quote, I think. So I fucking hate it to no end, to be honest. It just, if you got somebody, let's say you got somebody that is ready for the game, then they see that you're talking shit about them and they're like, I'm going to put in an extra couple hours here, right? And then in that extra couple hours, they find out a couple more things, right? I just think that saying that it doesn't have anything to do with anything at a professional level, that's bullshit. Like, you're a professional at work, aren't you? You get paid for what you do. If you had some competitor that was talking shit to you, wouldn't that make you want to like burn their ass even more?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah,
just because you're a professional doesn't mean you quit being a human being. And so I hate it. I know that he said that Andy Reid talked to him, and that people are like, well, so you're not going to see any more from Justin Reid until directly after the game when they lose, and he's like still sitting there saying, yeah, well, I did lock you guys up.
Right. Well, and that was like the day after the game. He had time to sit around and think about it. It wasn't like a heat of the moment. He was pissed off after the game and tweeted out. I had a coach growing up that he said, talkers talk and winners win, and scoreboard is the only thing that you need to worry about, and the only thing that really does the talking. So, and for the most part, the Chiefs have been that guy.
Sure.
Yeah, he said he knows now, but then after the game, he sent another tweet out saying, I know this unpopular opinion because we lost, but I did what we said we was going to do, cry about it or something. I thought like dude's
Fans don't
phone
like
got
it.
hacked
The
or
coaches
some
don't like
shit.
it. The fans don't
Uh,
like it. The coaches don't like it. It potentially gives the competition something to want to beat you even more. Seems like the only person that it really does anything for is maybe you. So if that's the case, then you're probably being somewhat selfish, right?
right. Yeah, let's not have any trash talk. Let's not give the Broncos any bulletin board material. Let's just go out there, play our game, quit shooting yourselves in the foot. And the Chiefs, it seems like they just when they lose, they beat themselves. I guess you could say that Bills game was a close game. Both teams played pretty evenly, and the Chiefs played pretty well. Although they did have an interception in the red zone, at the goal line in that game. Um, but yeah, that is true too. So I don't know if a side bet. I mean, if you get motivated by trash talk, you're probably getting motivated by money too. I don't know if I would be betting anybody on the side if I was an NFL player. I'd look at Calvin. I'd look at Calvin Ridley's situation and think about that a bit before I started making any kind of wagers on games.
I
If
couldn't
I was
believe
a,
that he
if I
said
was
want to
a
make a
player,
bet about it on the
yeah,
internet. It was like, it's one of the dumbest things I've seen somebody do in a while. But
use your real name. um, but yeah, I Chiefs Broncos. What are you thinking? Do you want to get some score predictions before we get out of here? Or?
yeah, let's see. We got a couple here in the chat for Carroll 37-10. Take that all day. I think John V said, John V said 37-10. Oh, no, that was Carroll. Sorry.
3,710 to what?
Be nice, Scott. So, yeah, 37-10. I don't think the Chiefs are going to score a ton of points in this game. I don't think the Broncos are either. So I'm going to go 27-14 Chiefs. I think it's a solid win, but we're not gonna dominate and put up 40 or 50 points. And nothing would make me happier than coming back and seeing this next week and going, man, Nick, you were way wrong. The Chiefs put up 45 points. So
yeah. I've got my guy John V in the comments, so I got to go with at least 30 for my guy John. I'm going 30-13. 27-9. That's pretty close to what I got. I think the Chiefs got a fire. I think they're going to be pissed. I think the Hornets' nest got rattled in that game last week. I think you're going to see Travis Kelce, who dominates the Broncos already. He's been stewing on that fumble all week. You know that just has to be like stuck in that draw. I expect him and Patrick Mahomes to go nuclear on the Broncos.
Like, dude, you just can't not pick 30 points.
Dude, they're averaging 29, and they were averaging over 30 before this week, John. So that's not outlandish. That's not Homerville. The Chiefs' offense is that good. I think the last time I picked them under 32 is when I picked them against the 49ers, 27-17, and they put up 44 and really should have had 50 because of penalties. So John's weighing in 35-13. That's a good score. That sounds like fun, and a nice easy noon game sounds really good this weekend.
Yeah.
Got a few things I'd like to get done this weekend. So nice noon game that wraps up early, get some stuff done around the house. Who are you watching in this game, Nick? On the Chiefs, defense, offense? Who do you think has a game?
I'd like to see Chris Jones have a game. After all of that, he took quite a bit of flack on the internet, and rightfully so, for them not getting any sacks. They had double teams on him most of the game, but still, he's seen as the leader of that defense, and especially the defensive line. And they put up essentially nada, right, on Joe Burrow. And so I'd like to see him come and wreck Russell Wilson's world, eat up the running back. So that's going to be who I'm going to root for, and I'm going to pick Chris Jones, my player of the game.
If you're in the comments right now watching, tell us who you think. Who's your player to watch? Who's going to be your player of the game? I do need my beauty sleep. You're right. As you can tell, I don't get a lot of it. So um, I'm going Pacheco. I think Pacheco balls
Yeah.
out against his Broncos, this vaunted defense. Yeah, it'd be good to see Sky Moore get some more action. There was an interesting clip I saw of Steve Smith talking about Sky Moore, and he was pointing some things out about his route running and his maneuverability and some moves he made that really impressed Steve Smith. And dude, when Steve Smith starts talking, I listen because that dude was a great
Oh
player
yeah.
who had the unfortunate circumstance of being stuck on the Panthers for most of his career. But yeah, John V's going with Pacheco. I think we see a long Pacheco touchdown run too in this game. It's been there.
It's been close.
He's been close a couple times, and I feel like he should have had one. There was a couple times where he got tripped up on a play where it looked like I was like, "Oh, come on, man!" Like I think he should have busted that one, but I think he gets a long run. Again, Chiefs are going to be pissed off after that Bengals game. What better way to get right and to make yourself feel better than to take that rage out on division rival, the Denver Broncos, who are just having an absolute terrible season. It's like Dick Vermeil said, right? The key to like these really, really good seasons where you have these really, really good records and high playoff seasons, keep losing teams losing. Go to Denver.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let them hang around. Don't get don't stall out at the goal line and kick field goals and turn the ball over and let them hang around and give them that hope. Just jump out on them and get up 13 or 14 or 17 nothing early in the second quarter and put it on cruise control. That's what I'm looking for in this game. This team's too
We need
good.
to see that. Yeah, we need to see them put a game away early, and
Yeah.
when they have the opportunity, just to crush a team's spirit. So
Yeah.
I wanted to throw this up. John said this a while ago. So John, have you guys talked to Tony after that episode of Locker Room Rant? For friends of the show that are watching here, check out Locker Room Rant. It's a great show. And for those of you that don't watch, so Tony kind of had like a Joker mental breakdown moment where he stopped laughing. And I was watching him for a solid 15 minutes. I thought he was looking at the comments or something and laughing because everybody was going on about this third string quarterback for the 49ers for like an hour. And everybody in the chat was like, can we like talk about something other than the 49ers? But then all of a sudden Tony lost it. So if you guys talk to him, John, I hope he's all right.
Yeah. Our guy Tony, John, Locker Room Rant is a good show. You need to go check it out. You need to go follow him. Go give him a subscription. It's Tuesday nights. It's funny as hell. Our man John V. He's a 49ers fan, and this will tell you what a good dude John V is. Okay, John V. Let me tell you something. We're diehard Chiefs fans. This dude is a diehard 49ers fan. This dude loves his 49ers. And I've heard the story about how he went to Miami for the Super Bowl and might want to turn the audio off at this point, John, and just talked about what a miserable experience that was and how the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes ripped his heart out. And he was like the highest of highs, right on the verge of winning the Super Bowl in Miami, celebrating, to being on a boat ride with a bunch of Chiefs fans the next day after the game. And he still comes on here and watches our show and comments and gives us love, even though the Chiefs have to be one of his most despised, hated teams. He's got to have some fan PTSD from that game and from Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. So we love John V. He's a really good dude. Go support his stuff. Follow him on Twitter. Watch his show. Those are just good dudes, and they put out good content. And we really appreciate having John come in here. If you want to go back a few weeks ago now, I should say, go back and watch our 49ers preview episode. John V came on, and he was really good. He knows his stuff. So go give that a check. Go check that out. Any final thoughts before we jump out of here, Nick? Anything else on the Broncos? Anything else on the Bengals game that's sticking to you? Playoff thoughts?
Good opportunity to get right against a team that you should beat. A division rival on the road. Patrick Mahomes is undefeated on the road in his division, so Got to keep that streak going. And this will be lucky number 14 in a row against the Broncos. So I'm just looking forward to them getting back on the winning side of football, and that's really all I got going, man.
Yeah, you don't see Patrick Mahomes lose 2 games in a row. And you don't see him lose on the road in the division. And the Broncos are a miserable team having a miserable season. And we just gotta get those guys. I appreciate that, John.
Yeah.
You're my guy too, man.
Hey man, buddies for life, you know.
Yeah, you ever want to get weird with somebody, man, just let me know. But I need to get up to Ohio and visit my man John. I need to do that maybe for a Royals Guardians baseball game next spring. We get baseball season going here or something. But because John V is the king of Ohio Niners fans, there's no doubt about that. But yeah, Chiefs, they just need to keep the misery going in Denver. So I expect it to happen. Looking forward to that game. Again, noon kickoff, taken out of flex, because when they scheduled the Broncos in the offseason, remember, they're going to be better than the Chiefs, and this was going to be the best division in the history of football. And the Chiefs were going to be in a retooling year, and they might not make the playoffs. And new Mahomes, Justin Herbert. I saw that the only player with more losses in the league since he entered the league was who was that, Nick? Was that Matt Ryan or something like that? I think I sent you that tweet.
Yeah, Justin Herbert, wasn't it?
Yeah, Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
Yeah, new Mahomes. Better than Mahomes. New and improved Mahomes. Turns out not so much. Chiefs got this division wrapped up. They're going to win the division. I'm going to get to another home playoff game at Arrowhead Stadium. Chiefs are going to be up there in the mix. They're at the top of the AFC still. The number 2 seed. That's in a good spot, 9-3 with this record. A lot of people. I think Vegas had our over-under wins at like 6 this year. They were looking at the Chiefs as a 10 or 11 win team. They win this week, and they'll have basically exceeded that with a pretty fairly soft schedule coming up here. Maybe that Seattle game, Christmas Eve's going to be a good one, but
Bo's messing with us. Sorry.
Bo is?
Yeah, he switched our logo to the Patrick logo.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
I couldn't not laugh at it.
Yeah. Well, he is Patrick Mahomes, after all. I'm going to give you one more chance there, Bo. It's good to see whatever ails Bo hasn't got his sense of humor down, and he can still be in the background there. We'll get Bo back next week to talk about this win over the Broncos. Chiefs get to 10 wins. They can win the division. If they win this week and the Chargers lost, that's the magic number right now. This division is going to be wrapped up with a month to go. And who would have guessed that coming into the season? Well, I mean, a lot of people on this show guessed that Chiefs are going to win the division and it wasn't going to be all that close. But no one in the national media would. But that's why you watch Chiefs Kingdom Live. Thank you, everybody who joined in the chat. John, Shippy, Carol, Big Doug, Laney, John V. I think I saw our man Dylan was in here. Really appreciate everybody that tunes in and watches the show. If you haven't done it yet, we get 100-something views, and we get like 8 or 9 likes. So if you haven't clicked like, do that. Click subscribe. Really helps the channel out. Really appreciate it. Yeah, John, Bo's he's out with
illness. Got some bad soup,
Yeah, so. You got some bad soup somewhere. So, but follow us on social media. Click like, click subscribe, and until next week, let's go Chiefs and beat those donkeys.
All right, let's go Chiefs. Uh-oh.